Welcome everyone. This is a new episode of our show, The Big Q. We discussed last time what apologetics is and how it's vitally important to discuss every day with our children. Actually, you don't just tell the children to, hey guys, let's talk about apologetics. It's not like that, of course, but it's how you slip it into everyday conversation in order to prepare them to think critically and to think rationally about everything and the main discussions and debates that's happening right now, and how to prepare them to be ready in front of all of the challenges that they're going to face in their lifetime. So in order for you to answer the tough questions that your kids ask or the children that you serve in the church, you have yourself to be familiar with the new challenges or the debates that's going on during this era. And for you to know this, you have to be familiar with the answers and the most common debates and discussions that's happening around you. Today we're going to talk about the creation. Of course, we know that without God there is nothing, and because of God there is everything. This is a very small sentence, but it carries a lot of faith, and of course it carries a lot of discussions and questions and answers. In the first chapter of Genesis, verse 1, the Bible tells us that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We believe that in the beginning means before the time, God, we believe that God exists, created everything around us. And this is a very simple verse, and we all know it, but it actually carries a lot of our dogma and a lot of the faith that we believe in. Our kids need to know that God is the source of everything. And they actually know it. But how can you emphasize this, and how can you tackle this in the everyday discussions? The first thing that I want to discuss with you is, do you have a certain time for a Bible study with your children or not? If you don't have, then you have to have it. Every day before they sleep, you have to open the Bible with them and read with them every day a small story from the Bible. This actually will get them close to God. And you can call it our God's time, the God's time, or the Lord's time. There's time to eat, there's time to drink, there's time to play, there's time to study, and there's also time for God. And we dedicate this 10 minutes, 15 minutes for us in order to know more about God, because we love Him. And in these discussions, listen to them very carefully, and what do they ask? In the case of the creation, we believe that God created everything, and He's the first cause of everything. And because He is so powerful and He's so all-knowing, He created everything around us. So when you tell your kid that God created the heavens and the earth and the trees and the animals and everything, and you see it very beautifully made, that also implies that He's so beautiful and He's so creative. But then comes a question. It's a very hard question, and actually this question puzzles like a 5-year-old boy and the most prominent atheists like nowadays, like we all know who, Richard Dawkins. The question is, who made God? If God created everything, then who created God? And this question, he implies that, therefore, God does not exist, because if you imply that, or if you say that everything is created, then God is also created. So when your child asks you, if everything is created, then who created God? This is the answer, that this question itself, it's illogical. Because when you say who created God, you imply that God is also created, but God in the very nature of Him, He's not created. He's eternal. Creation means something began at a certain point of time. So if we go back to Earth, the Earth age, we know that the Earth had a starting point to begin. And actually, God didn't have a starting time. God is always there from the beginning. As much as this idea is very hard for us to grasp, it's also true, because God is not physical. That's why He has not a beginning nor an end. He's eternal. He does not have a starting time nor an ending time. So that's for us. But how can you tackle this answer for the children in order for them to grasp easily? We're going to answer them very simply. Who do you think created God? If he tells you maybe a God that's bigger than him, then who created that God bigger than him? And then he will go to endless. But if you tell him, God is not created, and I will give you an example now, like What made the water wet? The water in its nature is wet. Actually, it makes things wet. But no one makes the water wet because it's in the very nature of it, it wets things. So God creates, but He's not created. Who lights the light? Who lights the sun? The sun is, in its nature, gives light. So God, in His very nature, is not created. He creates. And that's why we need to know that God is the first cause. For example, if your kid asks you, where did this building come from? Who made this home? You tell me. Who do you think built this home? He says people. And then who made people? God. Then who made God? No one, because God is not created. God creates. He's the source of everything. And if you give examples like that of things, the very nature of them that they give but is not given by anything else, then you have tackled this issue. Like the water example or the light example or the sun example, that in their very nature they give, but they're not given their very nature by anything else. That's the first thing that we have to tackle today, the creation. And you're gonna tell them, see how the earth is full of glory and beauty, and who do you think the earth, who do you think made the earth? God. God made the earth. And do you think that the earth, when it comes very close to the sun, what will happen? It will burn. And if the earth gets a little bit far from the sun, what will happen? It will freeze. So who fine-tuned the earth, do you think? If this all came up from nothing, then it might be burned or it might be frozen, but actually this is not. And you begin to discuss with them, what do they think of this fine-tuning and how beautiful the earth is, and what do we breathe? We breathe oxygen, and the earth is full of oxygen. And you can't find any planet else that has the same amount of oxygen as we have. And what do we drink? Water. And the earth is full of water. But actually they're striving now to find water on other planets, and so and so. You just give small examples of it, and then you begin to emphasize that those things would not have agreed or would not have been in the same place if there was no anyone who created them. And because of this, someone who is very powerful, who's very unique, who has infinite amount of knowledge, created those things. And this is where gods come from. Our kids are very precious for us. They're very valuable. And their questions are valid. You can make endless examples of how God exists concerning the creation issue. But the most important thing is to listen to your kids very carefully and to know what do they ask and how can you respond for them. Thank you.